WBKI Legal Line is now open. Karl Truman, the injury lawyer, is with us here on Election Day. If you have a workers' comp, Social Security disability, maybe you've been involved in an accident, Karl Truman is the name to know, and you can call us right now, 276-2118. Good having you with us, Karl. Election Day.
Yeah, and I was late getting here. It was a really bad wreck on the highway, backed up traffic, so that's why I was late getting here today.
Hey, maybe people are rushing to get to the polls. Now, have you seen some of the crowds out voting today? Has it been crowded?
I voted early. I don't want to fight those crowds to get
No, I don't
so
blame
I voted
you.
early.
Hey, I got to ask you a little bit about Election Day. We've talked about this about a month ago here on Lousiville Live this morning. There's going to be some changes with the mayor's office here, some state reps. But then on the federal level, looks like the House is going to go to the Republicans. The Senate will probably stay in control of the Democrats. Does this affect trial lawyers, defense lawyers, lawyers like yourself?
Well, it affects us all. I mean, it affects the consumer. It affects the people who get hurt every day, whether it's through automobile accidents or medical mistakes or nursing home neglect. Because, I actually put this in my blog the other day that I was listening to one of the candidates, and I don't want to make this a political, because it's not an issue of political party, but it's an issue of, one of the libertarian candidates running for Senate, saying she wanted less government, get government out of health care, no government regulation. But then in the same sentence she says, and that's why we need tort reform to bring down insurance rates. I mean, I'm thinking, is she really listening to herself?
You have it both ways.
Yeah, I don't want government, but yet I want the government to limit to minimum lawsuits so people cannot recover fully for their damages. When the reality is to say that, well, somehow limiting lawsuits is going to help health insurance cost. The cost of health care, the litigation or medical malpractice claims constitute about 0.1% of health care costs. So to say that that's suddenly going to drive down costs is just not the facts.
Well, we're taking your phone calls. The WBKI Legal Line is open with Karl Truman, the injury lawyer, 502-276-2118. Social Security, disability, workers' comp, injury, some other legal question. Karl is here right now.
That's right. We have someone on the line even as we speak. We have Larry from Louisville. Larry, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. What's your question?
I wanted to ask Mr. Truman, okay, I got Mr. Wester working on my legal case. And he's been telling me for 3 months that the workman's comp is getting ready to pay you. Now you got to wait at the end of October. Then he wrote me a letter telling me now you have to wait 15 more days, 3 weeks before they start paying me. So I was going to ask Mr. Truman about what was going on.
Sure. Well, it can be very frustrating, especially in the workers' comp process. There's a lot of bureaucracy that has to go through, because once you get through the process of, getting your treatment and then getting medical reports, we get medical reports and then the insurance company gets their medical reports, and then we kind of have to argue with them over, well, who's right and who's wrong, and do we meet somewhere in the middle? And then once we do try to reach a consensus and reach an amount that we can ultimately agree on, which again can go back and forth for a long time, then it's in an automobile accident. It's pretty simple. Well, I don't want to say simple. That's not a right word to use. It is
not as complicated.
It's less paperwork. Yeah. It's less paperwork because in an automobile accident, once we get to the point where we have an agreement, they send us a release and send us a check, and we're done. Where in a workers' compensation setting, there's a lot of more bureaucracy to have to go through with the forms you have to go through, and then it actually has to be submitted to an administrative law judge to approve it, which can take time. And so, that adds time to the process of even trying to get the settlement.
Because is there an average time that Larry should see some response, something? Is there an average for 3 months, 5 months, 6 months?
It's hard to predict. And if Larry wants to call me at my office directly, be glad to go over all that with him. But sometimes you get judges that let things sit on their desk. And sometimes you get defense lawyers. We've had cases where we've had the agreement, and so the defense lawyer, the insurance company lawyer, has to sign off on it, and it sits on their desk. And we call them and say, when are you going to get this back? and it gets frustrating, and it gets frustrating for us and our clients, and then sometimes there are some judges, because again, under workers' compensation, the judge actually has to sign saying, I approve this agreement. And sometimes some of them move quickly. Sometimes it sits on their desk for a while.
So it sounds like his basic question is this normal that I'm waiting and that this is going back and forth? And it sounds like what you're saying is, unfortunately, that's the way this type of process for this type of case works.
Well, again, and what is normal? It's hard to say, but the system does have some bureaucratic hurdles that we have to go through.
Right.
Yeah, I want to get we're taking phone calls, but I got an email here from Tyler in Louisville, and Tyler is writing us here on Louisville Live this morning, the WBKI legal line, talking about a scooter.
All right, he says, I saw someone driving a scooter on Bardstown Road and got to wondering, are they allowed to do that? Do they have to have a license and insurance if they're driving on a main road? That's a scooter driver.
A lot more scooters out there, people.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that really does concern me also, because no, you don't have to have a license, and you don't have to have insurance for one of those little scooters.
Really?
And well, ironically, I mean, some people who may have been in criminal issues and lose their license, they go buy a scooter.
Wow.
So they can get to work. Kids on scooters all the time. I mean, it bothers me to see kids on these scooters and they don't follow the traffic laws and are not wearing helmets. So that is a concern. I wish there would be more regulation of that. So to have insurance and to have some basic driver's education to be about to have one. But no, you don't have to have a driver's license to run around on one.
All right, TrumanLaw.com and 1-800-ACCIDENT 24/7. Give Carl a call. Karl Truman is the injury lawyer.